Today's video is going to be on replacing the fork seals on a CRF250L. Both of my forks are leaking. They just started on the last ride. So just going to go through a quick tutorial here on how this is done. So to start, as you see, I already got the front tire off, but you're going to take your front rim off. You got to loosen the two 12mm bolts at the top bottom of the fork. Then it's a 17mm to take the axle off. There's also two 12mm that hold your caliper on, and then on each side the fork guard are held on by 5mm Allen key head bolts, 3 on each side. So you get that stuff off, then you're ready to go ahead and start taking the forks themselves out. Before you do, loosen the forks up. To remove them, you're going to want to first only loosen the top 2 bolts on each side so you can loosen the caps. You don't want to take the caps off but break them loose while they're on the bike. And then after you do that, then you'll loosen the bottom 2 and the forks will slide out of the triple trees so you can start to disassemble them. Alright, I got the right side fork tube off, and on these forks, the way this works is the right side is the side with the fork spring in it, and the left side does, well, not that I can show you anything here, but the left side does all the dampening. So we'll get this taken apart, show you some of the steps in this. First though, I want to get my bench cleaned up here. I was drilling, got some metal shavings and things over here, so you want to make sure you got a good clean surface to work on, so that you're not contaminating the inside of the forks while you're doing this. Alright, so I got the bench cleaned up, got the fork cleaned off. So now I'm ready to disassemble. So I'm going to take the cap off. This cap, again, this is the side with the spring, so it will be under pressure, so when you're taking it off, be careful. After I get that out, we get it apart. There's a retaining clip in here we got to take out to pull the rod out. After I get that off, then we'll take it, dump the fluid out, and pump the fork to get all of the fluid out, and then we'll continue with the disassembly. All right, so I got the fork rod out and spring. Just a tip, I don't think it matters on this fork, but on some forks your springs will will be directional. So when I take the stuff out, I like to lay it down and out, you know, in the same direction everything came out, just to make sure you put it back together correctly. There's that snap ring that I got out. Wasn't too terrible. It was a little difficult because you have to hold down on this, keeping the tension off enough, and then try to with your other hand to get it off. But anyway, got that out. Then the spring itself just pulls out. So now what we're going to wind up doing is pulling the dust seal, and then there is a stop, basically another snap ring in there that stops the seal from being pulled out. And we're going to pull those. Then what you'll do is hold on to the tube here and the lower, and you're just going to jerk on it. You know, basically you're going to you're going to pull on it hard a couple times, and it's going to kind of knock itself out of the tube. Also, while you're doing this, you know, you want to look at your forks and make sure everything is operating smoothly so that there's no damage or anything to the tubes. So we'll go ahead and get the seal out here. Okay, so we got the fork tube off, and now here's what the inside of the fork, or the end of the fork, looks like of the tube. So this right here is your seal. There's a retaining clip, and then your bushings. So to get these off, you got to pull this bushing off. So you're going to have to put a screwdriver in the groove here and just spread it very lightly, because the more you spread that, the more you stretch it out and cause you problems for reassembly. Obviously, if you're putting new bushings in, then you don't have anything to worry about, but this bike only has about 2,000 miles on it. I'll be reusing them. We'll take this off, then you'll be able to put your new seal on here, and then in your dust seals, and reassemble this. You'll put it back in the fork tube, and then you're going to have to drive the seal back into the tube here. We'll clean that out. I did buy a cheap seal driver. Now I know you can use PVC, cut PVC. I guess on this, I've used it before on standard tubes, not inverted. So you can slide it down over, but with the inverted, I guess you could have it slit, maybe pry it over, I don't know. But anyway, you can see this is grooved, it has a collar, this is weighted pretty decent. I think I paid 30 bucks for it on Amazon. Hopefully it works decent, but you'll take that and these little pieces will drive your seal down in and set it. All right, now that you got everything apart and off, you're going to want to clean it before reassembling. As you can see, bottom of my spring had some bushing material on it, so we're going to go ahead and use some lacquer thinner, wipe all this stuff down, get it all cleaned up, and then start the reassembly process. All right, I got my seals back on the forks. Just a little tip here. If you take a piece of plastic, this was just actually, I just put a new roll of paper towels on, so it was just the paper towel roll plastic, wrapped it around the fork, and then slid your seal through it. And what this will do is protect your seal from getting damaged when you're trying to get it over the sharp edges of the fork, and it makes it slide over very easily. So just a tip to help you get those seals on without damaging them. So we did get them both on, no issues. The actual seal, if you look here, there is a slight taper on it on the one side, and that goes towards the bottom of the fork. So now we'll go ahead and start sliding this back in the tube and drive the seal in with that seal driver I showed. All right, so we got the fork seal back in. The driver worked pretty well, able to do that pretty easily. So now it's time to put oil in the fork. So on this side, you don't put any of the internals in. You put the oil in first. So this side takes 22.3 ounces, I believe. And after you put it in, you're going to want to cycle the fork to get air out of it, and then let it stand upright for about 5 minutes to make sure all the air is out. And then to make sure you have the accurate amount in, you're going to measure from the top of the tube to the oil. That measurement is 4.8 inches. I like to use my calipers actually for this because it has the little tail on it. So I have it set at the 4.8, and then I'll just run it down till the edge of it there touches, and I'm just barely touching the fluid, or in the fluid a little bit. So that's how I like to do it. So I'll put in, a little less than the 22 ounces just so I have the extra to add to it afterwards. So I'm not dumping fluid out. I can just add a little bit at a time. So as you add afterwards, it takes very little to bring it up, because remember, this tube is like a little over an inch diameter, and so very little fluid makes that move quite a bit. So just remember that when you're adding additional fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and get the fluid in this. Then we'll drop the spring in. Then we'll put the rod back in, and we'll have to compress it and get the snap ring to set, which will set in this groove right here. Then after I got that done, then we will be able to tighten the cap down, and we're good to go on this fork. It'll go back on the bike, and then I can start the next side. All right, so we got the right side back in. Again, when you're putting these in, just like when you take them out, you're going to leave the top ones loose. You'll slide it in, tighten the bottom ones. The clamp bolts are 24 foot-pounds. Your cap gets tightened to 26 foot-pounds, and then the upper clamp bolts are also 24 foot-pounds. When you tighten these, because it is a clamp, you tighten the first one and then tighten the second one. The first one may be a little loose then, so what you're going to want to do is double check them and make sure you got that 24 foot-pounds on them, on both of them. So we got this side done. We'll pull off the other side. The other side's the dampening side, so it is different than the side we just did, but we'll go through that one next and get this project wrapped up. All right, so we got the left fork out, got it all cleaned up, ready to start taking it apart. So I'm going to put in the vise here. At the end of the fork on the bottom, there is a 6mm Allen head bolt that you need to loosen. At this point, don't actually take it out, just loosen it up a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and take the cap off, drain the oil out of it. Again, you're going to want to pump the shock or the fork to get all the oil out. Then at that point, we'll take the bolt out of the bottom, pull the dampening rod out, and then at that point, it's basically back to pulling the seal off, the dust seal and the seals, retaining clip, and banging it back out just like we did on the other one. All right, we got the fork apart. There's the dampening rod and the retaining bolt that's at the bottom of the fork. There is a copper washer on that. The fork itself, the tube here, same exact setup as the other side. So we're going to go ahead and clean this all up and get the new seal on, reassemble it, and then get the dampening rod back in, and then we'll fill it with oil. On this side, it's going to take 23.1 ounces is what it calls for, and the measurement from the top of the tube is 1.5 inches. So again, you're going to measure from the top of this tube down inside. So we'll go ahead and get that going and get it back together and on the bike. Okay, we got the fork back together, got the oil level all done on this. Again, you're going to have to drive the seals in, and then after you get the seals driven in and the lower tube in to the upper, then drop your dampening rod down, put the bolt on the bottom. It gets torqued to 15 foot-pounds, and then fill your level up. Again, you want 1.5 inches from the top of the tube when the tubes are collapsed, and then just slide them back in. The clamp bolts for the tree are going to be 24 foot-pounds. The cap gets torqued to 26. Then all you got left to do is put your fork guards back on. They get torqued to 5.2 pounds. I'm not going to torque those. I'll just put them on. And then your brake caliper, that gets torqued. They get torqued to 22 foot-pounds. I did not look up the axle torque spec, but anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. So at this point, it's really just putting those guards on and throwing your tire and brake caliper back on, and job's done. So pretty simple overall. You just take your time and be organized and make sure you've got a clean work area, and you shouldn't have any issues getting this job done. Thanks for watching the video. If you like it, please subscribe.